the man, yes, sir, that killed the bear barehanded so the people won't forget it. Getting money for I was legal to drink. I care what a broke nigga think.
Just like the pack of Lewis.
Look, everything I do so cold. I can do this, both eyes closed. Too short, I stay on my toes. About that guap boy, anything goes. Help the bear if we outside. Help the bear if we outside. Still tipping, baby, nothing changed. I'm still grinding over here, yeah. Still sliding through my own lane. Shorty, nothing funny over here. Dallas rain everywhere around me. Dream to get money. Made it through the storm, living sunny. Dreams came true, now we eating. I got more dreams to chase, gotta reach them. Trying to put a team together like the Hunger Games. Everybody grinding because we all came from hunger pain.
That's right. You are here. You know what? I'm glad to see y'all. Happy to see y'all. Late Ill Kid at OneYoungsta, hold it down, bringing the StreetGeek and NERDSoul. What is up, y'all people? Today, we are here with an episode of BlackTogether. I said BlackTogether. So, everyone, it's an auspicious occasion because normally, we're jumping here, we're jumping there, but we're going back to a topic that we touched before on the real world Los Angeles homecoming. Last time we talked about this show, what were we doing? We were talking about, we were talking about Irene and we were talking about Irene and Tami. That's what we were doing. We were talking about Irene and Tami because Tami had got into it with Glenn about him recounting a situation he was in that he experienced where someone had used a racial slur, an anti-black slur.
Yes.
And he said the word because he was trying to, I guess, keep the quote intact. Mm-hmm. But Tami was like, you don't need to keep the quote intact for me. I know what they said. I get it. And you don't need to say it. Don't say it even if you're trying to properly quote someone. Yeah. We know what they said. You ain't got to say it.
Because when it's called the N-word for a reason. We know there are thousands of words that begin with N. Yes. But when someone says the N-word, they know exactly what word you're talking about.
Thank you. So there's no ambiguity around it. So we covered that and we finished watching the season and we're like, you know what? Throughout the season, we talked about David. And if you were, watching Real World Los Angeles back when it aired or anytime since, or have kind of seen the scene or watched the Real World Los Angeles homecoming, you heard about the infamous covers. The covers and the pulling of the covers.
The blanket debacle, if you will.
Yes, the blanket gate. And we were like, you know what? David had gone through a lot then, a lot now. And we didn't really take any time to really cover or talk about David.
Yeah.
So, and this one we wanted to get into kind of talking about David and how he's been depicted. And then also kind of seeing if there's any parallels to just him, or is this a common thing you see in how black men are depicted in general. Lisa, did you want to start off with anything?
I just want to...
Did you want to start way back then or start with kind of now?
Well, I think we have to start a little bit with back then.
Okay.
To kind of tie it all together. But I just want to start with this statement.
All right.
The reason why we felt it was important to cover this is because of the interesting way of how David was treated by everyone. And we'll talk more about that when, in detail. But it was profound in thinking about how David was really by himself. Let's just be for real. He was by himself and fending for himself, which was symbolic of how black men are living right now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, if you don't know the story, to give you a quick pickup, back in 1993 or whatever, whenever the original series aired, in real world Los Angeles, the girls and the guys, they had their like little rooms and bunks or whatever, and Tami and can't remember the girl's name now. Karen.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Becky? Was it Becky?
I don't think it was Becky. Maybe Becky. But anyway, Lisa will look it up. But anyway, they were playing along and they went and they were like playing with the guys and girls, and they pulled the covers off of Beth, sorry. So Tami and Beth, they pulled the covers off of David. All right, David was like butt naked or something, or like half butt naked or whatever, because they're like in their bedrooms and stuff. So they're all playing and laughing along. So he runs in there and pulls the covers, or goes to pull the covers off of Tami. When he's pulling, everybody's giggling, laughing, like throwing pillows and stuff. It's just like everybody's kind of like just goofing off. He pulls the covers, he's pulling the covers, he finally pulls the covers off, and Tami is not naked under the covers. But he pulls the covers off, and then it quickly changes. At the moment, everybody's laughing, like, the other people in the house are laughing, and it seems like we're all just goofing off and just being silly, right? So then it turns into that she had told him to stop, and it somehow took this turn into it being rape, and it was kind of pushed by Beth. Well, not even kind of pushed. It was pushed by Beth that he had raped her. Now, at that moment, the show took a huge turn.
Yeah.
And for someone like David that was already kind of on his own on the show, this turn, especially on, national television, you're seeing this black guy that's put in a position where he's the only black man there. And then on top of being the only black man there, is now being characterized as the picture or the representative of like sexual predation, which is of course something that white supremacy loves to assert. So now there's this kind of thing going on with Beth, and she's pushing that he raped her, that
I have to stop you there. She did not push that he raped her.
Oh, okay.
She used the word rapist.
Oh,
and
okay.
she said something to the extent of, that's what rapists say.
Oh, okay.
Because he said something about, he pretty much said what you were saying. Everybody was having fun, mm-hmm. Everything was fine and lovely, and she said something to the extent of, well, that's what rapists say. And so just mentioning
mentioning that once that got in the zeitgeist, once they got in the air, everybody was like, oh.
Yeah. And he told her, you need to be very careful using that word.
Yeah, because no one was raped in that room.
Right.
No one.
Nothing close to that.
And I mean, everybody kind of, well, I'm sure as there's two Americas now, there's two Americas then. I'm sure there was one part that was like, yeah, that's what rapists do. And there was another group of people that were like, yo, y'all were just playing. It probably went a little too far, but there's no harm, no foul. Like, there's nothing, there's really no fire, nothing to see here, really. But with that, you have Irene, who at the time was an officer in the house. Irene, it becomes a thing now, because now Irene's in the house and she's an officer. She feels that she has a duty to respond to a certain degree. And the way she responds is to kind of assist Beth in characterizing this situation as sexual assault.
Yeah. She even went as far as saying that she should have reported it as such.
Yeah.
She said that, knowing
that it
wasn't that.
Yeah. So she knew that it wasn't that, but she literally said she should have called in and said that it was. So we see a situation where a black man is on his own, attempting to join in the reindeer games, because at the time it was kind of on the show that he was kind of antisocial. He wasn't part of the group. He didn't play along. He was, how they do. They're like, you're not playing the game. You're not, hanging with us and doing whatever. So when he does something that goes a little too far, but there was really nothing that was out of the ordinary. Even the house, the house Christian man was in there giggling and laughing too.
Yeah.
So everybody was thinking like this was silly playtime. But now someone who was told that he's not a part, he needs to be a part, becomes a part because he's kind of drawn into it from them pulling off his covers. When he does the same exact thing, it's termed and then turned into sexual assault, sexual harassment, rape, those things, because the word rape began to be used a couple of times and it hung over his head. So in this case, he gets kicked out of the house. They have this meeting and they're like, I don't feel comfortable. And this, because of course now that we've thrown the R word on him, now all of a sudden, now we don't feel safe around him. The same dude that's been there the whole time.
Yeah.
Nothing would have happened that night if y'all weren't running around pulling off people's covers. But now all of a sudden, he's the dangerous. He's the one that has to go. So when this happens, this turns David's career upside down, because David was an up-and-coming comedian at the time. He was starting to get roles on, TV shows, movies, things of that nature, voice acting, stuff like that. Completely halts everything because he gets kicked off the show, seemingly because he's a rapist or he's being called a rapist. And that word it surrounds him in his career. So his career takes a huge nosedive after that. Gets kicked off the show, huge nosedive. It's been years, 20-something years, right? So now we got to come back on, Homecoming. Yeah. And when you come back to that, you still have this man whose life was ruined by at least 3 of the people on this show, seemingly for joining in on a game that they started. So he comes to the show, and you can still see he's on his own. And on top of being that, he said he's already been through trauma. He had been in a car accident where someone had hit him and basically left him for dead. So he's like fresh out of the hospital, all kinds of craziness is swirling around him.
Yeah, and had a serious, massive head injury.
Yes. So he comes into this house, and pretty much like myself, I'm thinking, yo, the only reason he's here is because I'm sure they're about to apologize for what they did to him back in the 90s by basically hanging the sign around his neck nationally that this dude was a rapist. You know what I'm saying? Because you ruined this man's career that was just getting ready to get going, you know what I'm saying? And you destroyed it. Surely he'll get an apology. Lisa, did he get an apology?
He did not get an apology. What happened was this. Tami goes into this deep dive detailing all of the things that she was going through, behind the scenes and in her life. And she goes into all of this and says, you all don't know what I was going through. And I'm like, bingo. What you are trying to do is shame people for behaving a certain way.
That they knew nothing about.
Even though they didn't know all of the other things that you were going through, body dysmorphia and all this kind of stuff. Well, no one knew that, Tami, and no one had any way of knowing that unless you shared that. Yeah. And you knew that. You knew you had these, body issues and things like that. And so in this circumstance where y'all were all playing around and pulling covers and this, that, and the third, I'll say this. You didn't know if someone you were pulling covers off of had that issue either.
Yep.
If you want to flip the script,
but you still did
if we're supposed to be understanding of this, ghost of an issue, you didn't know what they were going through either.
Thank you.
So,
but it didn't stop you. You didn't stop first and be like, "Do you have any mental issues or emotional issues or insecurities before I pull this towel off you?" No. They were just playing, giggling, laughing, pulling towels or covers off of people.
Right. So I thought that was just very unreasonable for her to go there and
to say the least,
to kind of go there and pretty much trying to shame people into, like, oh my God, you shouldn't have behaved this way because I was going through X, Y, and Z. I know.
Yeah.
I had no way of knowing. It's the equivalent of someone getting upset because they're having a buffet at the house and you're having eating disorder issues. How am I supposed to know?
Yeah, I have no idea.
And I'll say this. Some people may disagree and think it's insensitive for me to say this, but when you have issues to that degree, I don't think it's the best idea to go on a show such as this.
Because she even said that she hid those issues from the producers of The Real World.
She did.
So here's the deal. Like, because David even said, he was like, you shouldn't even have been on the show.
Right.
And that's when we find out that she hid those issues from the show. So now, here's
we found
the thing.
out that other people hid other stuff too that we might get into.
You lied. Yeah. You lied and hid facts, lied by omission to get on the show. Then get mad about the things that you hid being hit and pulled out and rubbed the wrong way when you on the show. How are we supposed to know? You didn't even tell them. So you didn't tell me, but now I have to be responsible for knowing or responsible to being sensitive to insecurities that I don't even know you have?
Right.
Like,
also,
what?
you can't play this game of pulling covers off of someone to reveal them.
Yeah.
And then pull the, I got body issues. You can't pull cover off me.
Can't pull covers off me.
Like, man, that's
even
not
though I
how
told
it works.
no one.
Right. But that's not how it works. Even if you had told someone and you're playing with someone in that way, you're fair game. You just made yourself fair game.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you playing the slapping game and you slap somebody. You say, hey,
That's
I've been hit before. I have trauma from being hit. Well, you about to get trauma from being hit again.
Yeah. That's why I tell them young boys when they be out there slap fighting and stuff, I'll be like, yo, don't do that. Because it seems fun now until someone gets slapped a lot too hard.
Right.
Then all of a sudden it's a real fight.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because you'll always see the little young Thundercats out there trying to slap box. They're like 9, 10 years old. You be like, no, stop. They're like, oh, we just playing. No, I know you just playing until someone get hit a little too hard.
Yeah, and I will say this. I'm at that age. I was one of the people that, originally saw this. So, I was watching this in real time, if you will. And, Real World was absolutely huge. And for most people, you're either on one side of the fence or the other. You either were on the side of Tami or you hated Tami's guts.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was on the side where I hated her guts. I thought what she did was totally wrong. She was in control of the situation in terms of she controlled the narrative. So when Beth came out of her face and used the word rape, Tami could have been like, Beth, I'm upset and everything, but no. Tami she was in control of it because she could have stopped this snowball from rolling at any point because everybody was trying to, cape for her.
And even they showed these like behind the scenes shots of the producers. And there is this shot of one of the producers talking to Tami. Basically, he's trying to be like, you ain't get raped. Like, but he didn't like outright say it, but he was just like, it seemed that everything was fine until you had a chance to like sit in the bathroom for a moment.
Exactly.
And then, and then it seemed so.
And you realize, oh my God.
You realize it's going to be on TV.
Yup. They didn't
Somebody
just embarrass
might see
me.
my body, They
didn't just embarrass me in the house. This is going to be on TV because again, this is their first time doing this. This is all a new experience.
So I got to save face.
Got to save face. And you sacrifice this man in order to save face. And it still, that's the thing, it still didn't save face.
Yeah. And real quick, shouts to Kid at Heart. Nice to see you come through. What up, what up? Nice to see your sunshiny face. And the funny thing is, David goes in, he's like, I need this apology. Basically, like, you guys made me, you know, the rapist of the show or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she was like, well, I was the woman that tore down the black man. It's like, but yeah, that one's true though.
That was true, man. You earned that.
But see, what you did, actually, you did it.
Yeah.
What you said he did, actually, he didn't. You know what I'm saying?
It's
not, don't try to equate these two things.
Right.
You said he went down in history as being either a rapist, a sexual harasser, a sexual deviant, or predator, whatever.
Right.
That's what he went down as the show went on.
Exactly.
No one stood up for him.
Nobody.
No one stuck up for him. He was always by himself, which goes into how the media generally treats black men whenever there's any kind of whiff of impropriety.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter who you are, how much money you have, or whatever. If someone says, "Oh, I think he did," that's basically a conviction.
Yeah.
So.
And I remember feeling so badly for him and feeling so angry. I remember being so angry at Beth and being angry at Tami.
Yeah, for me, I was mad at like Tami, Beth. Well, Beth, because Beth was really pushing it. Like Tami was. It's like Tami was. Beth. It might be Beth, Tami, Irene for me, but after that, I stopped watching the show. So that's why when they showed Glenn in the homecoming, I was like, "Who's this guy?" I was like,
I barely watched
Glenn and Beth. I was like, who are these people?
Yeah, I barely.
I was like, I ain't watching this show no more. I was like, y'all did this brother like that. I ain't watching this no more.
Yeah, I don't remember a whole lot after that. I mean, I was one of those people that I was, stuck on Real World, so I did continue watching the shows. But again, I put the responsibility mostly on Tami because again, she was in control of the narrative. She could have stopped this at any time.
Yeah.
Because they were caping for her. So if at any time she said, you know what, guys, this has just gone too far. This is too much. Let's just go ahead and let it go and move on. Or, we need to really stop using the rape word. That's too much. That's too far. It's not true. That's not what it was. She could have done any of that at any time, but she was more concerned about how she looked.
Yeah.
And she wanted to be right about the situation so badly and not come out saying, I could have behaved differently. Or
people want to be right so bad.
He just did to me what I did, to him. Maybe he should have stopped because he did go on and on. When they played it back, I didn't realize that it went on for a long time. He was so determined to get back at them.
But they had exposed his body. So in his mind, he's like, nah, I'm going to get y'all back.
That's true. That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So
but she didn't want to take any responsibility for her part in it at all.
At
all.
So, all right, so we got that. That happened back then. Now let's flash forward, right? You think you're going to get an apology, right? No, you get what Lisa was talking about with that kind of like, well, y'all just don't know what I was going through. You got that. Then you got this kind of half-baked, sort of after the fact apology from Irene, which ain't even worth mentioning.
But before we get into that,
and then Beth comes up on the back end like, well, since ain't nobody watching, I'm kind of sorry too.
Oh, before we get to that though, we need to mention David apologized to Tami.
Oh yeah. So David gives a full-fledged, real apology.
Yes.
Not a if you were hurt, if I had offended, nothing like that. Tami, I didn't mean to, or I shouldn't have.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yep.
That a real
in front
apology
of everyone.
Not hey, well, if you were offended or somebody was hurt. No. It was a straight up, yo, I shouldn't have did this. I was wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Straight up apology.
Yep.
So does he get one?
No.
No, not at all. And then to make things worse, you think, hey, these people, they're older now. Even if they won't give a full apology, it's water under the bridge. They are more mature now. They will go forward and they'll let this go. The fact that they weren't able to apologize to David messed with him. I think David felt that he was going to get an apology. And he didn't. And I think that really bothered him, which it should have. Because it's been 20-something years and y'all still can't be like, yo, I was wrong. So, okay, he didn't get it. But you think, hey, we're going to end the show, right? So after that issue with Glenn and Tami talking about the story where he was talking about the N-word, Tami gets into BLM and what's going on with cops and black people. And she kind of like goes to David to like kind of like back her up. David doesn't really back her up. And I think it's because David was like, look, I think David was mad about that not apology. So David was just like, hey, I'll try not to get into this stuff, because at least what it seemed like from him was like, we ain't solving racism tonight. So
yeah,
why
that's
am
what
I
he
going to get
said,
into it?
pretty much, yeah.
He was like, I ain't solving racism tonight, so why am I even going to get into this?
Yeah.
So,
and what you not gonna do, Tami, is try to get me all buddy with you to prove your point when you can't even take responsibility for being wrong with me. So boop.
Boop. Delete. Boop. So.
Like, oh, now you want to have.
So now you want some solidarity.
Now you want some black solidarity.
So, all right. So peep this. She is highly frustrated.
But she ain't never dropped that cigarette though.
Oh no, that cigarette stayed in her mouth. That cigarette either stayed in her mouth or in between the fingers. All right.
That's why her jaw muscle's so strong.
Man,
she got to hold on to that cigarette.
She had that cigarette in her lips like my granddad used to. You know what I'm saying? That thing ain't never fall. My granddad can tell you a whole story. That cigarette be hanging right here. It never leaves. All right, that would never drop. The cigarette was basically just burning itself. It was just burning on its own, but it was just there. But anyway, so she's mad now that he didn't back her up. So now he's not like a black man, or he's not down with the cause, or he's, somehow soft or whatever. And she's picking at him about it. She's mad about it. And she says something to the extent of like, how would your daughters feel? Or how would your daughter feel? I think he has one girl. Mm-hmm. So how would your daughter feel? Now, okay, we have established how Tami felt back then and now. We have established what was done to David. David says, leave my daughter alone, leave her out of this, right?
Right. Because Beth mentioned something about his daughter in front of Tami and I believe everyone else.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, don't talk about my daughter.
Yeah, because he said, my daughter watched the tape and she told me flat out no one was raped. And y'all were wrong for that. And Beth tried to say something about his daughter and he was like, don't you bring up my daughter. So it's been established, right?
That he's
unlike
sensitive about
Tami hiding things from people, he established it. Don't talk about my daughter. I don't want to hear it. Stop it. Leave it alone. This is no man's land. Drawing in the sand, whatever.
Right.
Just do not enter. Do not talk about my daughter. So Tami, I want to ask you real quick. Do you think Tami listened to that?
She doubled down.
Oh, she doubled down. So now she's going to continue talking about his daughter and how he's a bad example to his daughter, or he's not, leading her down the right path or whatever, or not being the right type of black male figure for her daughter to know about blackness and black social issues and stuff. Now, it's not like Tami has been at the forefront of the movement, but that's
neither here nor there.
That's neither here nor there. She keeps touching on that daughter issue, just hitting that button. Mm-hmm. So finally, he get tired. He start going off on her. So he starts talking about her, starts talking around her, being all like talking about like she getting on my nerves. I can't stand her. Can't remember. Like she ain't gonna talk about my daughter like that. Like kind of like while she's in the room and stuff like that.
But if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong. If I remember right, the original conversation started at night. And then of course everyone went to bed, and somehow it gets started up again the next day.
Tami said something random to him. I can't remember what it was, but at breakfast, Tami says something, or maybe tried to come to him the next day, and he was like, "Yo, man, just leave it alone, just let it go."
I think that's what it was, and
he was just like, "Just let it go. Just leave it alone, let it go." And whatever it was, she went off on him again, said something smart. So he said something to the extent of like, "Girl, I'll snatch that wig off your head." And she was like, "I got hundreds of wigs," or whatever, something like that. But from that statement, him being like, "I'm gonna snatch that wig off your head, you keep on playing." And then she said something else about his daughter. He was like, "You keep talking about my daughter, I'm gonna snatch that wig off your head." So he says it like 2 or 3 more times when they're kind of like pit-patting at each other, but they're like talking about each other while each other in the room, but they're not saying it to each other. You know that kind of thing.
And
like,
then
if somebody in here getting on my nerves, that kind of thing.
And then she stopped because she was done, but he was not.
Yeah, he was not, because you done been talking about my daughter. So
and y'all won't leave me alone. So
now remember, this is the same brother who's in this house with like 6 other people. Nobody steps in and be like, "Yo, Tami, chill. Yo, David, look, man, I know she bugging, but look, just let her do." No, they just sit and watch this fire burn.
Yep.
All right. All of these people, this 20 years later, all these people watch. So Tami takes it upon herself after she's poked the bear numerous times and even talked about getting physical with David. Then she calls her husband for what some would term proxy violence. And what is it? I can't remember the brother who said it right now, but he talks about it all the time, where a woman will kind of like get a man real angry and get him into a physical space and then be like, "I'm going to call my brother. I'm going to call my husband. I'm going to call my man. I'm going to call my cousin." You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, hold up, look, everything was peace and you made it this, and now you don't want to even own up to what you did. Now it's go call the cavalry time. You know what I'm saying? And kind of creating a situation where they commit the violence or the physical acts that you talked about doing on your behalf. So anyway, she calls her husband. Go on about because you talked about the show even allowing that to happen.
Yeah. See, it was just so much wrong with this, because once Tami called her husband, because we have to really think about what's really going on. They are in, for all intents and purposes, a closed set. It's a house, but it is a closed set.
Yeah, there's no other people, no visitors really.
Right. This is their property in that moment. For all intents and purposes, they're renting that property. And so that's the show's property. No one is just randomly coming in and out. Even though they have guests, we all know they're not coming in and out without permission of the show. So for them to have allowed her husband to come there with that energy, he wasn't there to just be like, "Hey, Tami, how you doing? Let's have lunch." For him to be allowed to come on the property the way that he did,
threatening people, even threatening cameramen.
Yes, looking for David, to let him go through the house looking for David. You let this man go through the house, David's house. Let's be real.
Yeah, for all intents and
purposes, that was David's home for the period of time that they were running the show. That was all of their home. Right? So
which means they all have the right to feel safe there.
Thank you. So to let this man go through David's home to search for him to cause bodily harm, because if anybody wants anybody to believe he was there to, quote, talk with the way he was carrying himself, is a fool.
He was going to do one of those talking like dudes from New York, when a dude from New York be like, "Yo, son, let me talk to you." That's the kind of talk.
Yeah, ain't going to be no whole lot of talking. So
he doesn't want to talk.
For the producers to allow that to happen, they were complicit with this whole thing. Now, what they did,
it highlights the accepted violence towards black men. Do you think they would have allowed Tammy's husband to come in there looking for
Tami?
Come in there looking for Glenn? Do you think they would have let Tammy's husband to come in there looking for, what is it, John? Who's the Christian?
I think it's John.
John. Do you think they would have let him come in there looking for John? No, they wouldn't.
No.
Do you think they would have let him come in there looking for Irene or Beth?
No.
Or the other Beth? No.
No.
But when we single out a black man, all of a sudden, hey, violence is okay. Hey, even mischaracterizing by all visual facts that we have available, completely mischaracterizing his actions into some type of sexual predation. It is completely accepted. And it's almost criminal the way they let it go down.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, at that time, I think David was on a phone call on the roof or like outside or something. Like, he wasn't there at that time.
Well, no, this is the thing, right? This is the thing. Okay, so the producers knew that her husband was coming there. Okay. Right? Yeah. They knew that her husband was coming there. They knew when he got there because somebody had to let him in.
True.
You know, so what they decided to do, instead of telling her husband to leave or that he couldn't come there in the first place, they made David go and walk down the beach and hide until her husband got good and ready to leave.
Yo.
Which I'm like, what world are we living in where you make this man who is being hunted by this other man go and hide instead of telling this man, you don't belong on this set, you're not here to visit or anything, you're here to cause issues, you gotta go. And Tami, by the way, we need to talk to you about even calling him anyway. None of that happened.
Because Tami made that call with full knowledge that her husband would come to inflict bodily harm on another member of the house.
Absolutely.
They would not have let that happen if that other member was one of the Beths or Irene or Glenn.
Yep.
Or Jonathan. Or Jonathan, whatever his name is. They would not have let that happen. So this is just outlining the life that David has had to live in this microcosm of, because it's a system based on a system. Like, you know, the real world is only based on the system that we're in America. And then, of course, kind of like even an extension of the system around the world. And to see it play out, I was like, you know, we were talking to one another like, yo, we really got to talk about this because this is sad.
Yeah.
That he has to live through this.
Yeah.
And then in this, guess who had to leave the house because people didn't feel safe again?
No, he left on his own.
He did leave on his own.
He left on his own.
You're right.
The irony
but he kind of.
Yeah.
He left because of this stuff.
He did. And so it was just ironic that it, you know, happened the same way that he said he wanted to stay until the end of the show. He wanted to stay until the end of this. But he didn't feel comfortable being there any longer because of how he was being treated. And he felt that it was only going to get worse. And he wanted to leave before they put him out because he could feel it. He could feel it. He's like, no. I'm not going to give y'all an opportunity to put me out again. I'm leaving, even though they only had one more day left. I felt so bad for him again, and I felt angry with Tami again.
And it well describes or well depicts how men, especially black men, I'll say how black men are handled in situations like this. You know, there was no effort to protect him whatsoever in his own house. There was no effort to pull back Beth and or Tami with their attacks this time in the show, in the original show, or this time in the show. Yeah. Because at any time, the producers could have came out and been like, look, all right, guys, look, let's cut the crap. It's not rape. It's not. it's not even sexual harassment. All of y'all are out here playing, doing the same thing. Y'all are out here playing, giggling, pulling off covers for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Your covers can't be no more special than his covers.
Your body is no more special than his body.
You know what I'm saying? Y'all,
if you want to be for real.
Like, stop it. Like, but instead, it was easier to scapegoat a black man for sexual predation because, of course, that's the, you know, that's the line. We're either we're killers or super predators or some crazy mess.
We're aggressive
or something. And oh, go ahead.
And I just want to say this. It's so this whole thing was a representation again of how everyone is against the black man. You had a white man. You had a white woman.
Yeah.
You had a Latina.
2 white women.
Yeah, you had a Latina.
Yeah.
Right?
Who was essentially
But who was the leader of it all? A black woman. And again, once
you know
again,
what? At least in this situation, she kind of led the she set the tone for this.
Once again, she's in a position of power where she can let this continue to go downhill, or she can stop it and say, this is enough. It's too much. We conflicted. We need to just go ahead and squash it, finish this thing. Yeah. She had the power once again to create and control the narrative of the situation, control what does and doesn't happen, how violent or how it does or doesn't get. And she chose to use her power for evil instead of good. Once again, to save herself. The same woman who really whines and cries the whole time about how ain't nobody for her.
Yeah.
Y'all ain't for me. Don't nobody care about me. Blah, blah, blah. Tami, you don't care about nobody but you.
She did go down a long line of how people aren't protecting her, how she's nobody's backing her up, nobody cares about her.
But the whole house was backing her up.
And then she went like F everybody and this and the third.
She sure did.
It's like you literally called an attack dog on another member of the house and nobody even did anything. And you want to know why? Because they were like, this won't happen to me. This is only acceptable because it's a black man.
Also,
there's no way she could call, because if it was for me, they would have got her while she was on the phone and been like, all right, Tami, cut it out.
Also, she incited and perpetrated violence between 2 black men.
Yeah.
Like, Tami, you checked all the boxes of what a black woman should not do.
Yeah, now that I think about it, when you look at situations like that, how many of these situations are kind of started by that kind of, well, I'm going to tell my brother, or I'm going to tell my cousin, or I'm going to tell my ex-boyfriend, or my boyfriend, or my husband. How many of these situations go down like that? Because not only did they allow him to come, but they let him enter the home and then search the home as if he was as he had some kind of authority into the house.
The cameras followed him as he searched the house for David, but
he even threatened one of the cameramen, like, back up off me, don't make,
But see, I guess they wrote it off as being okay because they knew they'd already hidden David. So they're like, this is gonna be a good moment. This is good TV.
Yeah, this will be good. Instead of being like, no, this is racist. And actually, not only is it racist, but it also helps throw wood on the fire of the gender war, which is completely manufactured, but that's a whole nother thing. And then even towards the end, when the producers come, or one of the producers come out to Tami and her husband, like, yo, man, you gotta leave. He's not here. You look through the house, you gotta go. And he's like, well, I'm staying here until you get back. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden, here comes Tami. Oh, baby, you gotta go. Baby, you know what I'm saying? I don't want you to get in trouble. You called him here.
Thank you. Now you want to act like, oh my God, I can't believe he's so hype. I need to calm him down. Girl, bye. You know your husband better than anybody else. You knew he was gonna come here and act a monkey fool because you wanted him to come here and act a monkey fool.
Now let's throw this out here. If he had come, let's say he came, and David was like, "I got you. I live in LA. I know some police officers. I'm gonna call some police officers here to meet him." And say he had gotten arrested. Do you know whose fault it would be? It would not be Tami's. Tami wouldn't say, "Dag, man, you know what? I created a situation where my husband got arrested." No, she would. It would be, David got my husband arrested.
Mm-hmm. David was such a punk. He couldn't just face my husband. He had to call the police.
Yeah. Why am I going to enter into this situation where I have to? I mean, unless I absolutely have to. But no, I'm not gonna. No, if the show is not going to protect me,
which they should have
in the first place, they should. The second Tami said you need to come up here, they should have been like, "Tami, no, he's not allowed up here." They should have taken the phone from her and been like, "Sir, you cannot come here. No, there is nothing wrong here. Your wife is not in danger. She's never been in danger. We've got security on set. There's nothing you need to worry about. There's no reason for you to come up here. And if you come up here, we're not letting you in. You know what I'm saying? If you come up here, you could leave in cuffs." But since this is an issue that we see devolve between a black woman and a black man, and of course placing a black man in a situation where he's being kind of like scapegoated, preyed upon, completely blamed, we kind of just let it ride.
Yeah.
And that's why I was like, yo, I truly felt for David this season, because I was thinking, yo, the only reason he's coming on here is because he's going to get an apology. Of course he's going to get an apology.
Well, I think
it's been 20-something years.
I think he also wanted to come on here to have some sort of completion. To have some sort of closure. And I think apology was part of it, but I think he wanted that closure because, like he did mention, he wanted to stay till the end since he didn't get to stay till the end in the original one. He wanted to come back on. He saw it as an opportunity to come back on and complete it.
And kind of finish what you started.
To finish what he started. And, I guess the lesson in it is some things aren't meant to be completed because you shouldn't be in it in the first place.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have started it, let alone complete it. And I think that was probably a hard lesson for him. It didn't help him at all mentally and emotionally to do this. And I think he thought it would because he talked about the counseling and things he had been through. But I think this actually was more detrimental to his well-being, quite honestly, because he actually was traumatized all over again.
Yeah. And now to be traumatized all over again and to not get the apology or anything that you expected, I can see what you're talking about, him being in a worse position now, or possibly being in a worse position now.
Yeah.
And I just it was something that I felt like, we still hadn't brought up, and like to cap off the conversation we had about Irene, this is one that really stuck with me just watching it. Like, dang, man, David never got a chance to, he caught a raw deal and never got a chance to get any kind of apology, not even from the show.
Nope.
Like, we didn't even get a situation where he was sitting with the producers and them being like, "Look, man, we called it wrong. We shouldn't have let that happen. We shouldn't have let this stuff happen." They were just like, "All right, David, bye."
Yeah.
It was like, we got all the juicy tidbits we needed.
TV.
We got our good TV. Goodbye.
Good luck.
And it just, it just shows how sad.
Yeah.
And
then John, to make himself feel better, gonna help him to the car and do his goodbyes. You could have stepped in at any moment. Anybody
I ain't
in that house.
trying to hear nothing about John.
Don't walk me to my car. Nothing.
John is a perfect example of the white ministers that stood idly by and pretended like they didn't know that the civil rights movement was happening. Like, they talk all this Jesus and God stuff and everything, and about injustice and everything. Here they go standing idly by. So you got John talking about what's right and doing right and everything, but you see injustice going on right in front of your face and you can't speak. John full of it, man.
Yeah,
John's even more full of it because he pretended like he was David's friend.
Thank you. Anybody in that house.
Like Glenn wasn't in there like trying to pretend that he was David's friend.
Yeah, anybody in that house at any moment had the opportunity to speak up and say,
be like, yo, Tami, you tripping.
This is too much. This is entirely too much. Y'all have been conflicting and going back and forth, but Tami, you calling your husband up here is taking it to another level.
Yeah.
You know, they could have spoken up and said,
what if David was there?
Right, and when he got there, somebody should have, because I think a couple of them was like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. You know, I don't really want this to happen. Well, speak up. Y'all stay here too.
Speak out.
Once he got there, you could have been like, look, this is too much. I don't want you running all up and through the house.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't know you like that. Like, and what? Let's say David was there. Let's say they couldn't get David out the house, and Tami's husband comes. He comes up to David, beats up David. Then where does that leave us as the show? Where does that liability leave them? Where does that leave them for your good TV? Where does that leave you? I'm about to sue the pit ants off of Mary Ellis Bunim up at this joint.
Absolutely.
But with that said, guys, that's our thoughts on the situation. I wish the whole situation with David went different. I wish he got his closure, the closure that he needed. I wish they gave him a real apology. I wish Beth wasn't a Class A Karen. I wish Tami wasn't Tami. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but Tami be Tamiing.
She did right.
You got Karens and you got Tami.
I mean, she did right when she told Irene she can't say that word neither. She did a good job, didn't
Yeah, that's the one
but
thing.
Then she blew it. She blew it.
You know.
So, with that said, Lady Lisa, say peace.
Bye, y'all.
NERD, SOUL, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those places. TikTok as well. Holla at me. I'm going to holla at you. Down in them comments, let's talk about David. Let's talk about this show. Let's talk about how David never caught a good break and never was protected and was completely mischaracterized pretty much every time he stepped on the set. And how that kind of extends to how black men are characterized, at least in reality situations on television still to this day, and in the media in general. Whenever you see something on the news or whatever, unless it's a situation where there's nothing they can pin on you, if you ever stole a candy bar, they're going to turn you into like the king of heists. But anyway, with that said, we got podcasts. Holla at us. We're going to be talking about Star Trek. We'll be talking about Bel Air this week. We'll be talking about a whole bunch of cool stuff and getting into some Guilty Gear as well. So, from me to you, thank you for watching. We're going to leave y'all with some black comics. I want to give a shout out to Keith and Jones. I want to give a shout out to Greg Anderson, Elise, 133 Art, Rashad Doucette. Give a shout out to Blurtish, all those people that help make the black indie comic scene that much stronger. Shouts to Newton Lillavoy, all of y'all. Black Comics Weekend was just last weekend. I couldn't get down to San Diego because I just had way too much stuff going on, and COVID's still out there. It's still chilling. So, I mean, I can't really go everywhere I want to, but the Black Comics Day was awesome, and we're going to leave y'all with some black comics. So from us to you, of course, thank you for watching, and until next time, peace.
You got to know that if you keep dwelling in the past, you will remain in the past. Can I get a fucking yeah?
Good day, gentlemen. This is a pre-recorded briefing made prior to your departure, in which, for security reasons of the highest importance, has been known on board during the mission. Now that you are in Jupiter's space, and the entire crew is revived, it can be told you. 18 months ago, first evidence of intelligent life off the Earth was discovered. It was buried 40 feet below the lunar surface, near the crater Titan. Except for a single, very powerful radio emission aimed at Jupiter, the 4-million-year-old black monolith has remained completely inert. Its origin and purpose, still a total mystery.
You're listening to my daddy, All Gorilla MC.